What is going on, everyone? Clearfire here. We got Hollywood Cole finally on this side of the table again. He's been corralled over to, he's been corralled over there gaming and playing it
Trivia.
up and having fun. We've had a lot of fun at Comicon this week, or this weekend, I should say. It hasn't really been a week. It's only been 2 days. Feel like it's been a lot longer than that, but it's been a lot of fun. So with that, we decided, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about something that's related to one of the guests. Well, Kevin Nash is here at Comic-Con, and Hollywood was like, let's talk about some NWO stuff. So we're going to talk about it and talk about some of our memories. So Hollywood, what you got?
Well, so I got Peacock, they got the WWE network now. And so I went back and watched WCW. Started to see. I didn't start from season 1. I kind of just went to where NWO got in, but I was just enjoying watching the old school wrestling, dude. And again, nostalgia or not, you can't tell. You can never tell, because I'm not a big wrestling fan now. And I've talked to Swingin' about this. So here's why. So this is just funny because I was I loved wrestling back in the day, and what killed it for me was when Ted DiBiase came down and talked. I mean, it literally killed it for me.
Yeah.
When Ted DiBiase came down and I asked him the question, I said, "Hey, so is this rehearsed like bell to bell, or is it just made up as you go?" And they're like, he said, some of the newer guys rehearse from bell to bell, but most people just the longer you've been in it, it's just made up. So in my mind, when I was watching it back in the day, you got two guys coming in. Obviously, the finisher's going to zap all your energy.
Yeah.
But you have an imaginary energy bar. Like every move is rehearsed to where, okay, you got drop kick. Okay, so that character is now hurt a little bit. No, they don't care, right? It's just all. So do you take every little punch, every little kick, every slam, all meant something in my mind because I thought it was all rehearsed down to the thing. Which, if you're doing a wrestling federation, you need to do something like that because that would be cool. Put a little energy bar up there.
That'd be funny.
Now, one of the drawbacks to that is that a lot of time it has to play on the crowd.
Yeah.
And just add energy, take it away. The crowd's cheer and add a little bit, take it away. Whatever, something like that. But that killed it for me because it's just like, okay, the outcome's pre-rehearsed, but everything else is just filler. So then it was just like, okay, the intros, the talk, trash talk, blah blah blah, that's good. And then at the end, you're like, you're going to see who he is. That's everything else in the middle. It's just kind of like, it just lost its entertainment value to me.
I get that. It's when you kind of have your thought of something kind of shattered like that. It kind of sucks and it kind of hurts, and you kind of either walk away or you go, whatever.
Yeah, and so that may be just all why. But when I go back and watch New World Order stuff, you got Ric Flair was on WCW at the time. Dude, this cat is something else. Now, we all know Kevin Hall, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash went over. They're like one of the first ones to go from WWE and written as the outsiders, and they broke kayfabe. They did all these bad things to go over there, but I think they got paid, I want to say it was $1 million each to do it, which was a big deal. $1 million a year guaranteed to go.
Major contracts, especially for people that weren't Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, that's massive contract. WWE was not paying that. Bret Hart wasn't making that.
You don't even see wrestlers making that nowadays unless they're top tier. Average contract price right now is about $250,000, $300K.
Yeah,
and that's only because they're now in partnership with UFC, under one company owning both of them. That's the only reason why their contracts have gone up in price. Yeah. So if that tells you anything about what the industry pays as far as you being just an everyday Joe Schmo wrestler.
Yeah, and so Bret Hart was, according to Bret Hart in his book, sorry I keep doing like this because this is how I think. I do like this to let the thoughts out. I'm waving the thought, fanning the flame of thoughts. And so, in his book, he talks about he was very loyal to Vince. Vince had made it, you got complete ownership of the Hitman and blah, 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 and would not go over. And then we all know the Montreal screw job. So he finally said, okay, well, I'm going over. And I think was it $2 million? I don't remember. It was pretty large to have him come over. Now, if you know so WCW lasted 5 years, something like that.
No, WCW lasted a lot longer than that.
Well,
but the NWO itself was only like, right at the end of WCW, like because WCW folded in 2001, 2002. I can't remember exactly
when it started. You're saying
what
WCW?
No, WCW started in like the 70s.
Oh, dang.
WCW's been around a long time. Like it started around. I know in the 80s it had a TV show.
Okay.
It just wasn't big until until they were able to pull Hogan. Because the Undertaker actually started in WCW.
Okay.
Actually, was
Mean Mark.
Yeah, Mean Mark Calloway.
Yeah.
Or Vicious Mark Calloway, something like that.
Yeah.
Callous Mark Calloway, that's what it was.
Okay.
And so he was in WCW for just a little bit, but he quit. He got let go, I think, and one of the promoters that kind of had a cross between WCW and WWE, and it might have even have been Paul Heyman. I don't think so, but someone like that, a esque person like that, basically convinced him to talk to Vince. They talked, and that's when the whole Undertaker came about, and that came about in the early '90s, very early '90s. So it might have even been late '80s.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, WCW actually company was long around for quite a while.
So even here it talks about we got a little bit of stuff pulled up about it, but but it's talking about most successful storylines was in the '90s with NWO, which that's what it actually took over the ratings over WWF at the time, and it was so good, man. And I'm going back and watching some of that. I went ahead and I did watch some old stuff, even with Surfer Sting.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And it was still good.
It's great. Like Surfer Sting, that era of wrestling was a lot of fun because it was the larger than life.
Yeah, that's what we want, man. If you're going to do it, do larger than life. Exactly. Not, Randy Orton. I mean, it's just a normal guy running out. I don't know. I've never seen Randy Orton fighting or anything, but it's just, so it's not fair to them. But it's just a normal guy. That's what it was. And then Kurt Angle. I mean, it's just like, okay, dude, we had Undertaker, we had Papa Shango, who's here as well. You had Diesel, massive dude. Mm-hmm. You had,
Godfather is here.
Yep, Godfather. You had, Razor Ramon, the Miami drug kingpin. Anybody said drugs or anything like that. But stuff like that. And Undertaker kept setting up. Would never. Mankind comes out, and dink, doink, dink, and doink.
Doink and dink.
Come out. I mean, it's a clown, dude. But that's what was so colorful about it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I mean, you kind of lose those larger-than-life characters when you started having the NWO because they weren't that larger-than-life anymore. You still have, you have Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, but they're not Diesel and they're not Razor Ramon. They're just Scott Hall and Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
They're just themselves, and that's NWO was a great place and a turn in wrestling because you start seeing them fade away from those larger than life. Because look at X-Pac or Six-Pac or whatever you want, 1, 2, 3 kid. Very little guy, but got a lot of push because of his size. And then when you start looking at those evolutions with people like Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, and those smaller wrestlers, that's NWO helped with a catalyst of change in the perception of wrestling.
Yeah.
That you didn't have to be the big muscle guy, although NWO was a lot of big muscle guys, but they kind of had that change in that switch there, and WCW played a huge part in that with their cruiserweight division because you have people like Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, all in that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that is true. They did kind of go away from that.
Yeah, because they quit doing the big stories.
But the big story was, the NWO's taking over the WCW. What's this going on in the NWO? It's like every once in a while they'll come on and hijack the show or something, and it's just like, you're like, okay. And then, of course, Eric Bischoff is actually part of the NWO this whole time. Yeah. It's a big turn. It's just crazy. And so,
well, I mean,
I just love that. I mean, and then you had the Wolfpack come out, the red NWO. And I'm not quite there yet in my view.
Yeah, yeah.
I do remember. So I haven't seen it since the actual live event. But I believe Sting comes out. Like, okay, so what's going on in my thing? This is what's so cool about it. Now knowing, but you didn't know, but Sting would come out in WCW. So first he appeared in the rafters as, the Crow Sting. Yeah. And everybody's like, what's he doing? What's Sting doing? And then he would never kind of come out and wrestle. He would just come out every so often and then just boom, DDT a guy, go back in the back. And you're like, why did he just come out here and DDT Chris Jericho or whoever it was? I think it was Jeff Jarrett that beat somebody and he just come out, boom, and then go off. And then one time he came out with a bat and pointed at Lex Luger, and then he flipped the bat around and gave it to Lex Luger and walked off. Now, we don't know what's going on, right? We don't. Why is he doing that? And I don't remember the angle, but I believe it's because he's DDTing secret members of NWO White, and if you're a good guy, he leaves you alone. And so this is great, dude. This is, I mean, you're wondering what this guy's doing. This is the mystery, and then he's got the bad guys and the good guys. And dude, I'm getting chills talking about it. Dude. I mean, this was
really
so interesting. It's so much fun to watch, and it overtook this massive conglomerate WWF. And what I was saying about the live thing, Sting eventually comes out, and you don't know whose side he's on. They got all the white NWO. So people were coming. Oh, I'm actually part of the white NWO. I'm actually part of the NWO. I'm part of the Wolf Pack, and they were always feuding. And then Sting comes out.
So before you get there, so just for you people that probably haven't watched this and probably don't know much about the NWO,
get Peacock and watch.
Please get Peacock and watch it. It's great. It's hilarious, great stuff.
It is hilarious.
It's really entertaining. But the original 3 members of the NWO were Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hulk Hogan. They split. Hulk Hogan makes his own faction, which is NWO White. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash make NWO Wolfpack or NWO Red. So just that a little bit of.
And the Reds were the good guys. So I don't remember why they split off. But you wanted to go for I always had a black shirt with the red on it. I wanted to see on it have the red. But here comes Sting coming out with all the Holliwood Hogans. They played the Holliwood Hogan angle, like, oh, he's in movies, he's not the same Hogan, and that's all he cares about is himself. Which he played the heel good. He played the heel good. And so here comes Sting, everybody's favorite, and he rips his shirt off, and it's a white NWO, and everybody's like, what's going on?
And he's wearing a white face mask.
And he has a white, he got the crow stuff on, right? He has the crow look, which is the white paint and the little black, things around the eyes, a black mouth. And everybody's boo, but then he just beats him down and rips it off again. It's actually red. He like tears it off again, and it's a red shirt. That's the way I remember it.
I thought he was wearing a white face mask.
Yeah.
Like his.
He's wearing a mask. He may have been wearing a mask.
And he rips his shirt off and pulls his mask up because when he goes to NWO Wolfpack,
it's red.
It's not white and black anymore. It's red and black.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did. He had the red and black face paint. And
probably did. I'm excited about seeing that again.
I might be wrong, but I do know they
I
had
remember
red and
something
black,
like that.
So it was a lot of fun.
So, and then they did had another angle with Goldberg.
Oh gosh!
And Goldberg, you never saw him. I never saw him, and then he comes out and they're like, "Oh, he's won 850 matches and never lost." And I'm like, okay, I don't know where he's wrestling.
751, I think.
Was it was some kind of ridiculous number,
something like that.
And so he'd won all these matches and never lost. So you were like, whoever's going to fight Goldberg, we're looking up wins for Goldberg here. Whoever's going to fight Goldberg is probably going to lose.
173.
Okay, yeah. So it was just like 80 matches when they started it or whatever it was, but it was just some ungodly match win streak, and so and then he had to fight Sting one night, and it was just like on Monday Night Nitro or something. It wasn't like a thing like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And it was so beautiful match, and Sting got him in the Scorpion Deathlock, and then I think somebody run in, right? So he didn't actually beat. I think it's like a disqualifier or something. That's what they kind of do when you got two good guys you want to win. Now, here back to Bret Hart. Here comes Bret Hart, arguably the best technical wrestler. I mean, he was Bret the Hitman Hart. He's not a crazy personality or anything. He's just Bret the Hitman Hart.
Absolutely.
And even as a kid, you're kind of like, I like this guy, man. I like this character. I like the Bret the Hitman Hart. He was a fan favorite. He would hand his glasses off. Once he started handing his glasses off to the kid, you're like, oh, he cares about the kids.
And they made a big show about that. Every time he handed the glasses off, the cameras would cut to that and everything.
Yeah, they did. Everybody loved Bret the Hitman Hart. And then, so now he's going to go to WCW. And his very first appearance was as an announcer or something. They didn't even let him wrestle. They just wasted him. And now, at this point, my understanding, you have Eric. The inmates are running the asylum. WCW is going crazy. They got Kevin Nash. Now, this is not the NWO thing. This is in the behind the scenes, real world, according to multiple books and whatnot. That Kevin Nash is writing storylines. Scott Hall to some degree. Hogan Eric Bischoff, and so they're just. Not. There's no commander in chief that can keep him in, like Vince McMahon can keep him in
Bischoff
reins.
Was
I know,
Vince
but he's
McMahon,
not Vince.
But
he's not really Vince
McMahon.
He
didn't have that.
He's got the title, but he doesn't have the ability.
He didn't really have that control over them because he made a mistake by bringing them in and letting them do their own thing right off the bat versus bringing them in and basically having
reining them in and keeping control. And so an easy thing, one of the greatest things that they, in my opinion, that they could have done is have Bret the Hitman Hart break the Goldberg streak. But how does he do it, right? He doesn't just go in there with brute force. Goldberg's going to crush everybody with brute force. They go in there with some kind of real technical wrestling move that Goldberg's probably not familiar with, that Hitman learned a long time ago.
Goldberg's like a brawler. He's not technical at all in his wrestling skills.
And then he wins, somehow having no choice but Goldberg. So you're still kind of like, Goldberg's still the killer, but now you got Bret Hitman Hart. That's one of the, now he's up there. He immediately jumps. But I don't think they wanted that to happen. Obviously, they didn't want it to happen. The question is why.
I don't know either on that. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird on how they brought Bret in all together. I mean, heck, one of the attacks that Goldberg did on Bret Hart, he went to do his spear and hit Bret Hart and got knocked out, and Bret Hart pulled the old Billy the Kid from whatchamadoodle from what's that movie?
You got Young Guns?
Yeah, Young Guns. Pulls it up and pulls the Biff Tannen where he had the plate because he had his piece he had metal under there for him to hit and knocks him out. And of course, now granted, Bret Hart is very still bitter about this because Goldberg did hurt him bad in the ring. Kicks him in the head hard and really hurt Bret, but Bret did continue wrestling after that when he shouldn't have. So it's
there's some
blame falls both ways on that. So, but
you see what I'm saying. So you got to bring Bret Hart in. But what did they do instead?
They wasted him.
Well, they wasted him, but who beat Goldberg instead? You remember?
Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash
with a cattle prod.
Yeah, Kevin Nash did. And so, and I've seen him on a podcast talk about, he had more pop than Goldberg at the time. That's why he did it. But he's the writers. He's doing all this. And, I mean, dude, that's just – if you're trying to keep yourself relevant at the time, I mean, it's toward the end of the whole thing. I don't even remember exactly when it was. Was it in WCW or was it?
It was WCW.
Yeah.
It was WCW because that's kind of like the catalyst of the fall of WCW is the cattle prod incident. I mean, everybody talks about that because – that was in the time of when Eric Bischoff was actually transitioning out of WCW, and Vince Russo was transitioning in. It's two different shifts there because Vince Russo came in and literally had the chance to make, to run with what Eric Bischoff had done and create it bigger and better, and he totally ran into the ground because he had a bigger ego than all of them, and he wanted to be the center focus, and he always wanted to be on the show because he actually started out as a writer in WWE, and he wanted to be on the show as a writer, and be out there kind of what he did in WCW, but Vince wouldn't let him, and so that's why he came over to WCW. But that's a whole long story for another time.
Yeah, there's
there's just so many backstage things. But Kevin Nash is at the time was very self-centered, very I'm the big bad and everything. And granted, he had a lot of name power and a lot of pull, but he wasn't as great as he thought he was. Especially when he thought that he was bigger than Goldberg, because Goldberg was insanely big at the time. Mm-hmm. And Kevin Nash was still considered a bad guy. Kids didn't like him, so of course you're not going to have a big hit with that. And everybody loved Goldberg because it's like, this guy, he didn't even talk or anything. He just beats his head on a door, walks out in the middle of the sparking fire that they have for his display, breathes in all that smoke, breathes it out, looks like a freaking like a dragon blowing smoke out, and then he just wants to beat people, and he had a great presentation, terrible wrestler. So
I think he was an ex-football player, pro football player.
He was an ex-football player. I mean, so 90% of the wrestlers are ex-football players.
I think that's him right there.
What?
Goldberg. Dude looks just like Goldberg, even big.
Yeah, somebody
It looks just
somebody
like
that looks
him,
like
dude.
Goldberg. Well, if he was walking through here, him and Kevin Nash might get in a fight because of that
Yeah.
cattle prod incident. I
Yeah.
think Goldberg's probably still a little sour
Oh my
about
gosh,
that.
that dude looks just like Goldberg.
But it's just crazy that happened, and then it just has to fall because, I mean, not long after that, you have David Arquette win the WCW Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, that gets stupid.
It just gets so stupid, you know. It was really sad the fall that happened because they had something great with NWO. NWO was something new, fresh. NWO created the turn of Hulk Hogan. I mean, that was something that nobody thought ever was going to happen. Vince definitely was not going to let it happen because it just didn't fit his character at the time. But then he becomes Holliwood Hogan, and that's really what everybody knows him as now, more so than anything, is Holliwood Hogan.
Yeah, so the wrestlers will travel around, even if they are not in the show. Sometimes they'll still go, and they might get called out. So, reason I say that is because I got to get the date, but we're on YouTube. You can see us on one of the Thunders back in the day doing a diamond cutter. Like it
was when DDP was really huge.
Yeah,
it was
DDP
awesome.
was
It was
huge.
a Thursday Night Thunder.
And so, believe it or not, my buddies that went, it was 4 of us, and they watched. They were big. Some of them didn't even care, but one of them was like big WWF fan. And he's like, well, I like the Stone. And that was the Attitude Era. I like Stone Cold and all that. And I didn't really watch it that much. And I said, well, our guy's Goldberg. And I said, what'll happen is you'll start saying Goldberg, go, and then people start doing it, and they're kind of calling it Goldberg. And believe it or not, when we started doing it before the show, I was showing him how to do it. Then the whole crowd caught on. The whole crowd's chanting Goldberg. And then when the show starts, you'll hear them chanting. I started that chant right there. You hear that? I started that chant. All right, and then we go through the whole show. I think I saw Scott Hall there, Raven. The ones I remember, Scott Hall, Raven, DDP. Jericho came out and started talking trash. It was in Birmingham. Started talking trash about redneck Birmingham. So it's during the commercial, so everybody's booing him when he wants to be the heel. And then at the end, you hear a chant again for Goldberg. Goldberg, Goldberg. At the end of the show, it's over. But what happened, live, Goldberg comes out. And Goldberg, and I can't remember, I thought it was Scott Hall. Maybe it was, did a wrestling match, not on TV.
Yeah.
Just did one for us.
A dark match.
Yeah, and we finally got so we got to see Goldberg fight. And it was awesome. He did a spear, the whole thing. He won.
Dark matches are a lot of fun because they can do things they wouldn't do on the show, especially like have wrestlers that normally wouldn't match up. They can kind of do that stuff in the dark show because it's great for that. Now, granted, you don't see that as much now because people have, smartphones with cameras and can take that. But back then, that's when they did their tests to see, hey, let's see if this little rivalry will work out. So let's go stick it out in front of the crowd and see what happens. So that's happened a lot in the dark matches back then. Now,
I'm going to find that Thunder match. I want to watch it again.
I actually have it recorded on tape,
the whole thing?
on VHS somewhere because I knew y'all were there and I didn't get to go. And I recorded it and I got it because there's several times the camera cut to y'all doing the diamond cutter symbol. I mean, several different times you see y'all in the crowd. It was pretty awesome. Because y'all actually got to be on the camera side where the camera sees you. Is really good.
Oh my gosh! So I'm debating on telling this story, but I'll try to make it quick. But this is we almost got in a real life fight at the. They almost had a whole other wrestling match break out about 4 rows back because of Preston. Look at this guy named Preston. He goes with us.
Man,
he wasn't even supposed to go. Then he goes with us the last minute. And
that's
he
how
goes,
Preston did things.
Give me $20, LP. Give me $20. And you're like, what? We had seats nosebleed tickets. Mm-hmm. He goes up there and sweet talks some girl into letting us in. They got people checking tickets to get the front row. Mm-hmm. So we get on like the 4th row or 3rd row, right on the edge. Mm-hmm. And we're right there. Like you can reach over and tap if you want. And I guess we just happened to get seats that somebody didn't use that week or whatever. But we got on there and we snuck some vodka in somehow, and like we would go get these.
That was Preston though. He can sneak anything in. He was awesome like that.
And so there was a slushie that we would go buy, and he would just pour vodka in it, and that was our vodka slushie that we would have. And and there's some guys in front of us, and Preston didn't even watch wrestling. He was into it, cheering. And he kept grabbing the guy in front of him. The guy's like, stop grabbing me, dude. It was a guy, and they're like big dudes, like athletes too. Mm-mm. 2 guys. And so anyway, Preston kept, it wasn't me. I'm sorry. And then he kept doing it and annoying this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He has the red slushy, and he starts going crazy. I guess it was a diamond cut or something. And the slushy goes, bleep, boom, and lands on dude's white shirt, white polo shirt. And the guy goes, if that got on me, I'm going to whoop your you-know-what. And he's like, that wasn't me. That was the guy behind me threw it. He's like holding it. And the guy, his buddy looked back and said, yeah, it's on there. And the guy was like, and the guy had enough set. I could tell, he would have been able to crush Preston like I'm snapping.
Oh, yeah.
Because Preston's a skinny dude, and that dude was so big. But, you know, he didn't have to deal with all the repercussions.
Oh, yeah.
But he was just like, he kept it in, but he would have just turned around and snapped him. But, man, I thought I was like, for sure, like, dude, he's got a red mark down his spinal cord that you put on him. And we're not gonna fight for you, Preston. You know, like
no, you're on your own, buddy.
Yeah, you're on your own, man. But we about broke out right there. But anyway, that was a crazy experience, and it just shows you too. They were into it, man.
Oh yeah,
they didn't even watch wrestling; they were into the WCW. So that was pretty cool. But anyway, man, I just wanted to do this little quick podcast. I just hit Kleer because I know Kleer's a big wrestler, wrestling fan, and going back and watching it's kind of like a relaxation, man. It's like a really stress reliever. Go back and watch these old ones, but then I'm like, man, these are really good. Just when they come out and do their, you know, their talking and their promos and their stuff like that. You know, Macho Man was in the WCW.
Yeah.
Dude, you know, and like Elizabeth was even there.
It's like all the old wrestlers because they basically had a changeover. It was like when Shawn Michaels beat Bret Hart at WrestleMania. God, what was that one? I forget which one it is, but it was WrestleMania where they did the Iron Man match and nobody.
The ladder match or nothing.
No, it was the Iron Man match that they did, and it went for a full hour, and nobody won out of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
And then they did sudden death, and Shawn Michaels beat Bret Hart.
Okay.
And that was the first time Shawn Michaels had won the championship.
Yeah.
That was the change of when they started changing the characters in WWE to be that more Attitude Era style, where they're getting away from more of the bigger than life stuff and went to them more of that. 'Cause Shawn Michaels was a little guy.
Yeah.
Comparatively in the wrestling, you know, he had been tag team wrestlers as Rockers with Marty Jannetty. That change ever happened. Yeah. And then that's when you started seeing a lot of those older, bigger than life wrestlers coming into WCW, because that's around the time, or might even been right at the time that Hulk Hogan had come into WWE. Now, of course, or WCW, and of course Hulk Hogan, old, aging, was beat up. He had to take a couple breaks, and that's kind of where the whole Hulk Hogan thing of joining the NWO comes into play, because he had actually been out of action for a little while, and that it was Bash at the Beach that Hogan comes out because they were having a 3-on-3 match, and the Outsiders, which were Hall and Nash, didn't have a partner, and the match was almost over, and Hulk Hogan comes out, and everybody thinks, Hogan's here, he's finally back, you know, and he's wearing his red and yellow.
Yeah.
Like, he's back, and then all of a sudden he attacks the good guys.
Gosh, I felt
and that's
so
where he has
sorry.
that turn, and then that
and it shows
ring,
the kids in the ring, out in the audience, just like their hearts were like,
the gut
I felt
punch.
so sorry for them, man.
It was so awesome and so sad.
I felt so sorry for those kids.
Then I felt sorry for the ring. The ring got trashed because everybody starts throwing their drink cups and wrappers from their burgers and pieces of pizza in the ring, and the ring literally fills up with trash because they're just mad
a lot
at
in
it.
WCW.
I mean, and that happened all the time because they did a lot of those swerves.
Mm-hmm.
They in their whole heyday, when they won for 80 weeks in a row, 80 some odd weeks in a row, it was the swerves. That's what made it, and they did that whole off the cuff story. They didn't have it all written down, and it was what made them great, and also what created their downfall.
Yeah, they had so one of the angles was Roddy Piper. You hadn't seen him in forever, and Hogan. Holliwood Hogan, and the whole thing that they announced, we can't get Hogan to sign the contract. He won't sign the contract. So they get Rowdy to come out. He comes out, and you've never seen him forever. He has this haircut. It's a little bit more sleek and modern. Dude looks awesome. And everybody's like, Piper, cool. It gets you so pumped. Dude's got that charisma. Just makes you
He really does. He did have it.
He goes out there, and then eventually, he's calling out, Hogan and all that, and he's just doing that ad-lib like you're talking about, and it's so good. And then here comes NWO, and they don't just come out one; they get the whole gang.
Oh yeah,
and everybody's started throwing stuff, and they love that, man. That's old school heat from, and so they know that they're working. They got that crowd in the palm of their hand now. They don't mind people throwing crap at them and stuff like that. I mean, obviously nothing that's going to hurt them. They're expecting that, but anyway, dude. So that was just, and you're just like, and it does. You're like, man, there's a gang. There's an NWO gang, and they're messing up this Rowdy Piper. Just signed the contract. Of course, they jump Piper and beat him down, hurt his knee. It's like a thing. You had that hurt knee. And so, but then you're like, man, I want to get, Piper needs to get back, and they're going to get Hogan and all that. And his thing was like no retreat, no surrender at the time. But anyway, that was something about it, man. I thought it was so good to see. And so again, nostalgia or no, I don't know. I don't necessarily remember that. But
I think the stories were more engaging.
Yeah.
And two, when they had the hard competition of the WCW versus WWE, that really created it.
Yeah.
And of course, Eric Bischoff's whole mantra is controversy creates cash.
Yeah.
Him doing what he did really pushed us into a really great realm with wrestling at the time. And him bringing in that idea of the NWO. Yes, I know that it really originated in Japan and all of that, but it was all from that and that growth of the NWO that really grew wrestling and that popularity and that really heat that we had at that time, that fun, cool vibe that made wrestling cool for everyone and not just the wrestling fans. Or
it was fun, man. So. I'm going to go back and check it out again. I might even watch some tonight if I can.
Oh, gosh. I
got a good internet. You don't got that where I'm from.
All right. So, guys, thanks for listening to us on this little quick talk we had. Well, ended up going 30 minutes there, a little longer than we thought. But, hey, that's all good.
Fun.
So, remember, watch us, hnkexp.com. Check us out. Listen to us in any podcast media outlets. And we'll talk to y'all later. We got about an hour left here at Comic-Con, and we'll do at least another stream or two. So, take care, everybody.
Later.